Good morning, wrestling fans. Today is Friday, January 20th, 2023. As always, I am your host, Lance Brock. Thank you very much for tuning in here on Spreaker or wherever you listen to the podcast. And since today is only 3 days away from the Raw 30 coming up this Monday night, I thought that I'd talk about the first time that I saw Raw live. Because at the time, I've only been to WWE, WWF house shows, and finally I got to go to a Raw. And actually, it was the first televised wrestling show I went to at the time, because I also, for WCW, only went to house shows too as well. Not sure why, that's just the way it worked out for some reason. My first live Raw was October 28, 2022, or 2002, 2002. And unfortunately, it was during the Katie Vick storyline, which I'm sure everybody remembers, not for good reasons, but I'm sure everybody remembers around that time between Kane and Triple H, and the famous segment that happened the week before on Raw. Not for the right reasons, but still a famous segment. So now let's get into it. October 28th, 2002. Said it right that time. Monday Night Raw. Joe Louis Arena here in Detroit. The commentators at the time was one of the most famous, probably the most famous on Raw in Raw history, Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler. And I definitely remember this show. Usually though, I always say I enjoy shows more when I'm there live. And like I said, this was my first time seeing Raw live. So kind of is special for me. And if I was just at home watching this on TV, I might not have enjoyed it that much. Raw was on TNN at the time. It was before it switched to Spike TV. And so overall, I wouldn't say it was really a bad episode of Raw. I also wouldn't say it was a real great one either. Like I said though, I probably enjoyed it more because I was there live. If I was just at home watching it on TV, just a regular episode of Raw, I might not have enjoyed it as much. I remember we didn't really have the best seats, but they weren't bad. And we were in the first row, I believe, of the upper deck. And kind of looking at the one corner, from the one corner of the Titantron. So we did get a good view of the entrance when they came out. And this Raw opens up with Triple H. I mentioned the Katie Vick storyline that was going on at the time. And there's a casket in the ring, which is a tease for what will be going on later tonight. Triple H in the ring starts to cut a promo on Kane and goes out to the casket and pulls out a dummy that looks like Katie Vick. He acts like he's talking to the dummy and pretends to interview it, and he does the voice and everything that's supposed to be Katie Vick, just making fun of Kane. Definitely not one of Triple H's best promos, not the best example of his mic work. And then eventually Kane does make his way out, chases Triple H off, and he destroys the dummy, picks it up, slams it against the steel steps at ringside. And we see at the time the Raw general manager Eric Bischoff, and he makes a match for the main event, Kane versus Triple H in a casket match, and that will take place later on. Or there's something I forgot, I just remembered, and no wonder why I forgot, because it's pretty bad. But first, before Kane comes out, I don't have any notes, I'm just going with what I remember. Well, I do have the results, but it's just the match results I have. The promo first is interrupted by the Hurricane, Gregory Helms, making his way to the stage, and he says, Triple H forgot to mention that there's video footage of, I don't know if it was a couple weeks ago or so, from the operating room when Triple H was in the hospital, and it's just the doctors pulling things out of his butt, things like that, and then different things, and like I said, it was just bad, and they would do something similar like this again with Vince McMahon and Jim Ross, the whole Dr. Heine segment, which was maybe even worse than this one. So that's on the Titantron. You can see that, unfortunately. But so that's the main event for tonight. Triple H and Kane in a casket match. And we see some tag team action, which this match was pretty good. Lance Storm and William Regal taking on Rob Van Dam and Tommy Dreamer. Kind of a short match, but for a TV tag team match at the time, I would say it was pretty good. Storm and Regal, very good as a tag team. And we got Rob Van Dam and Tommy Dreamer, two ECW originals. And we see Test and Stacy Keibler in the back at the Olympia Room. They're at Joe Louis Arena. Stacy Keibler talking about how Test needs to build his fan base, and how The Rock has his people, the Hulk has his Hulkamaniacs, and she says Test needs his testicles. And Test is in action next. And before the match, he gets on the mic and he says, "I love all my testicles." And he defeats Goldust in kind of a, I don't know if I would say squash match, but kept kind of short. And Chris Jericho and Christian, who at the time are the Raw Tag Team Champions taking on Bubba Ray Dudley and Jeff Hardy. At the time, Devon was over on SmackDown doing the Reverend Devon gimmick. So that's why at this time was Bubba Ray teaming with Jeff Hardy. But just about a month later or so, at the Survivor Series, is when Devon would get involved in that tables match they had, and they put the Dudley Boys back together since Reverend Devon wasn't working and Bubba Ray wasn't really working as, I wouldn't say singles wrestler, because he was teaming with Jeff Hardy and Spike Dudley at the time. But it wasn't quite working as good as the Dudley Boys. Jericho and Christian win this one because I remember there was a distraction. 3-minute warning. Jamal and Rosie come out on the stage and they're holding Spike Dudley upside down by his legs, which distracts Bubba, and Jericho and Christian are able to pick up the win. Chris Nowinski and Booker T are up next, and Nowinski gets the win with a disqualification. I don't remember what really caused the disqualification, but Nowinski wins via DQ. And before the match, he cut one of those promos usually about how smarter than everybody else he is. And Trish Stratus defeats Jacqueline and Molly Holly. That was I want to say was a women's championship match. Trish was a champion at the time. She retained. Very quick match. At the time was, I don't know, Russo wasn't there, but they were still doing kind of really short matches on Raw and more in-ring promo segments, backstage segments, things like that. So the matches were shorter than like they are now in 2022. I'm going to say they're real long now, but definitely the quality of wrestling has improved since then. And the main event, Kane and Triple H in the casket match. This was a little longer, of course, than the other matches on the show, but nothing real great. Kane wins, and I don't remember what they did when Raw went off the air. I'm sure they did something, but I don't remember exactly what. So that was actually my first live Raw. And before Raw, they taped Sunday Night Heat. I want to say it was still on MTV at the time. The commentators for Heat, Jonathan Coachman and Lita. And so overall, I'm going to say it was a great episode of Raw. But overall, it was, every time you see pro wrestling live, it is fun. At least a little bit of fun anyway. So I had a good time. And now this Monday, we celebrate 30 years of Monday Night Raw. Definitely will be doing a recap of that. So that's all for this episode of Good Morning Wrestling Fans. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in right here on Spreaker. Stay tuned for 360 Wrestling Fanatic. And tomorrow morning, right here, GMWF. Hope everyone has a great day. Keep watching pro wrestling.